From the Fidelity Bank Foundation studio, PBS Kansas presents One-on-One with Victor Hogstrom.
This is where the movers and shakers of Kansas come to talk about their lives, careers, and places in this incredibly complicated world. My guest this week is Wichita State University President Richard Muma, who prefers to be called Rick. Dr. Muma has been at the helm of WSU since May of 2021, but he is hardly new to Wichita. He was born here, and he has spent nearly his entire career, almost 30 years, at Wichita State in various capacities. Prior to that, he earned his bachelor's and master's degrees from the University of Texas and his PhD from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Coming up, we'll talk about his priorities as president of Wichita State University, and we'll discuss the high cost of tuition and student loan debt that has become a national crisis. And we'll find out how WSU is battling the nationwide trend of lower enrollment at colleges and universities. There is much to discuss, so let's get started. One-on-One with Rick Muma starts right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom. It's a pleasure to welcome Wichita State University President Rick Muma to the program. Dr. Muma, Richard Muma.
Yes.
Or Rick, you prefer. You've spent nearly your entire career at Wichita State, almost 30 years now. And now, was it always your goal to become president?
You know, it really wasn't. I started my career as a PA, a physician assistant in Texas, at the very beginning of the HIV epidemic. One of the first PAs working in that field at the time, and really all I ever wanted to be was a PA, take care of patients, and that really energized me as the thought of being a clinician, and I was very happy in that role, and got asked to write a grant for the PA program at the University of Texas Medical Branch where I was working, and one thing led to the next thing, and I was a faculty member. And got to know some people at Wichita State, and they said, "Hey, would you like to come to Wichita?" And
as a PA?
As a PA faculty member at Wichita State. And so I applied for the position. It was made available through funding from the Kansas Health Foundation. They gave some grant funding to expand that program. I got the job and worked my way into being a department chair, and then became an associate vice president and did things like accreditation and those sorts of things. And then I became the provost along the way, and then became interim president a couple of times. And so finally I thought, well, I don't know if I want to be another interim president again, so I'll apply for the job, and I got it and been president permanently for 2 years.
So at what point did you do your master's and PhD?
I did that when I was down in Texas. My master's degree down in Texas before I came to Wichita State. And then I worked on a PhD after that at the University of Missouri, St. Louis.
Now you hold the highest position at Wichita State, and but you've held other positions before becoming the president of the university. Which is the most fun?
Well, I certainly enjoy what I get to do as a president, like sitting here with you, and get to meet some fabulous individuals. I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. One of the things I enjoy the most about working in academia is working with faculty and helping them solve problems, develop new programs, and those sorts of things. And I still get to do that from my position now, a much higher level. Right. But that's really what I like doing the most.
So what has been the most challenging position so far?
And, well, there's been several. We know we've had lots of different transitions at the university, expanded it, the new innovation campus. That was a big transformation for the university, all good. But the challenges associated with growth and just different ways that we were putting that together. We've had a lot of different challenges around athletics and making sure that we provide a good, solid education for our athletes and where they're going to be successful. And so working through those issues. But by and large, we've had lots of more opportunities at the university. And I've been here for, as you said earlier, close to 30 years. And I've been able to see a lot of changes, been able to be involved in many of the things that you see now at the university.
Let's back up to the beginning of your life. Tell us about your childhood, your growing up days, and where did this all happen?
Yeah, so I was actually born here in Wichita. My family homesteaded some land out in Mays, Kansas. The big ditch took that property away, and my great-grandparents had to move into town. And my parents met here in Wichita. My dad was an engineer for a Conoco oil company. And it was during the time where they were moving a lot of the oil companies to Houston. And so we were transferred down there. And that's where I grew up, elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. But I came back to Wichita every year because my grandparents actually worked at Wichita State. So I was roaming around the campus back in the 60s and 70s and really got to be really familiar with the university. And so that's why it was, although coincidental that I got to come back here, I was recruited here as a faculty member, it was a good feeling about being able to come to a familiar university that I care so much about.
So at what point did you decide you were going to pursue a career in higher education rather than the medical field?
Well, it kind of morphed in the early days of the HIV epidemic. So, when I became a PA student back in 1985, I was just thrust in the middle of that disease, that new disease, and gained a lot of expertise working with one of the most respected, internationally known herpes virologists and infectious disease, and really gained a lot of experience about what was necessary to take care of that patient population. And so the university hired me in Galveston to write a grant and work on a grant to educate students, medical students, PA students, nursing students around that particular disease. And there was a vacancy on their faculty, and so they said, Rick, why don't you apply for it? And so I did. That's how I got into higher education. Everything in my life has been more experience-based and moving into the next phase because of some challenge or issue. Mm-hmm. I never woke up any day of my life that said, I want to be the president of a university, particularly Wichita State University. So it's just kind of happened along the way.
Right. So what would you say, Dr. Muma, as your main selling point that caused you to become the president of WSU today?
I think the experience that I've had at the university and my experience prior to working at Wichita State, just a real deep understanding of how universities work from a faculty member, from an administrator, from an accreditation standpoint, assessment. I think those are really key, deep skills that presidents benefit from. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not surprised or shocked or, wondering how things happen or what needs to happen just because of that deep experience.
So you're heading Wichita State, and you mentioned the campus, the innovation campus, earlier. Describe what that campus is all about and the expansion to an additional 150 acres of land. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me back up a little bit because higher education is going through a transformation, and we knew that we needed to do something different at the university if we were going to maintain relevancy as an institution, but also to help our community solve problems. Wichita State is an urban public research university, and that means two things. Mm-hmm. that we're here to provide affordable, accessible education and to help our community solve problems through research, through creative activities, and other service initiatives. So we knew that we needed to do a better job of thinking about what are the skills that our students need when they graduate. We were hearing from our employers that having to spend extra time when they graduate to get them up to speed to wherever they're working, whatever industry or business or agency they're working in. And so previous president, John Bardo, sort of conceptualized this idea, well, let's bring some of those business and industry partners to campus and have a more closer collaboration with them, not only working alongside our students, but our faculty, and modify the curriculum in a way that will be beneficial to everyone. So that was the whole idea. And then we also had a golf course. It was a 150-acre golf course that we purchased back in the 50s from the Crestview Country Club that was really intended for an expansion of the campus. We also had property that we could expand in, and it's been really successful. I've worked at two other institutions, two bigger research institutions, and I haven't seen anything like this really catch on at the level that it has caught on.
So how is it paying off today?
Well, the original premise is to make sure that we connect our students to business and industry and the skills that they need. And so we look at basically two things. One is how many students are actually working with our partners and how much are they making. And so right now it's over 8,000 students earning about $28 million in additional income to help them stay in school. We have a lot of underrepresented minority, low-income students. They need that extra support, but also they're earning the skills. So to me, that's a really good outcome. It was all about the students. And the second thing is it's really grown our research portfolio. We just surpassed $270 million this past year in funded research, well on our way to grow past $300 million. And so that also has benefited our students because there's many research projects that they get to work on, but it's also more importantly benefited our community, helping our partners out in the community who need the extra support or expertise that we have that we can bring to them through that research.
So how is that $270 million, how does it compare to other universities in Kansas?
So K-State is around $215 million a year. KU is about $380 million a year. So that kind of gives you a little perspective of where we are.
Now there's also something called a Shocker neighborhood or Shocker neighborhoods around the Innovation Campus. What are those and the purpose?
Well, where Wichita State is situated off a hillside and 17th Street, it's always been adjacent to the Fairmount neighborhood. That's really where the university started, right up at 17th and Fairmount. And, the university probably hasn't done a great job of connecting those neighborhoods to our campus. And so we intentionally, 2 or 3 years ago, started talking about how can we make a more intentional connection to that neighborhood to help support those neighbors, get them involved in the university, but more importantly, the kids that are growing up in that neighborhood, how can we get them at our university? Mm-hmm. So Shocker neighborhood is basically bordered by 135, Oliver, Central, and Hillside. That may not be the exact streets, but it is a pretty big area. Okay. And so our goal is to make sure that everybody has access to the university. And so we are reaching out intentionally to those neighborhoods and beyond, but specifically Shocker neighborhood, to make sure they have their full cost of tuition and fees covered through need-based aid and coupled with their Pell Grant that many of them will bring to the university. And we want to make sure that especially is taken care of because many students in our community, not just the Shocker neighborhood, but there's a lot of individuals who don't have access to higher education. We want to make sure that we provide that opportunity for them.
Dr. Rick Muma, we play a little game on this program,
okay,
which is one of the fun parts of the program. And
okay.
I have a game for you. It's called Either Or. And when you answer, make your selection, say why.
Okay.
All right? Would you rather write a book or read a book?
That's a hard one. I've written several books, and I have said to myself that I hope to never have to write another one because it's a lot of hard work. That probably won't be the case, but I'd probably say that I'd rather read a book. I crave information. I'm more drawn to biographies than novels and
Right.
fiction and that sort of thing.
True stories, in other
Yeah,
words.
yeah.
Would you rather read Shakespeare or Mark Twain?
Mark Twain has some much more, I think, interesting quotes, so I'd probably go with him.
Would you rather attend a lecture or attend a rock concert?
Oh, a rock concert.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Oh, well, you get to see all these famous performers. Why not? So I spent my whole life going to concerts.
Oh, okay. Would you rather do yard work or cook dinner?
Well, my spouse would probably disagree on my answer, but probably yard work. Although he's telling me I'm not doing enough of that today. So,
Would you rather hike the mountains in Alaska or lay on the beaches of Florida?
oh well, we spend most of our time on our vacations hiking. I don't know about Alaska. That seems pretty challenging, but I'd probably give it a go.
Well, there are always Colorado mountains and
Yeah.
Utah. And
Exactly.
okay, now that you've responded to those game questions, tell the viewers who is Richard or Rick Muma.
I think that most people will describe me as I just was mentioning, sort of a serious conservative, not politically conservative, but just someone who's not out there, in a bombastic kind of a way.
Show.
Yeah, right. Level-headed, steady, predictable, cares a lot, likes to listen to people's stories.
Mm-hmm. Are you helpful to others?
I think so. I mean, I think that comes from my background in healthcare. It's very useful in higher education. Taking care of students is like taking care of patients.
Okay, so let's talk about the cost of college today, of higher education. It seems to have doubled over the past, 20 years. Mm-hmm. Tell us, why is it, and what is Wichita State doing about it to help those who can't afford to attend college?
Yeah. Well, there's several reasons why it's the cost has risen, there's a lot more compliance. There's a lot more that goes into accountability of what's expected when we teach our students and demonstrating those outcomes. I think what it translates to students and why it seems to be out of reach from students is because there's been less public investment over time. Mm-hmm. When you went to school, when I went to school, the public side of things and public education provided 70-80% of the budget. Now it's about 20. Mm-hmm. So that means that tuition has to go up, and students are the ones who pay that portion of their higher education. And so that's the real reason why we're seeing the problem that students have in terms of affordability. And so what we're doing, and this is what I think is the real reason for public education, is just to provide access. We're making sure that all of our students have that opportunity. I don't know if you know this, but just to give you a little bit of a picture of our student body. So 1 in 4 of our freshmen identify as an underrepresented minority. 1 in 5 students are Pell eligible and enrolled in the state's 6 schools. 1 in 5 of those are at Wichita State. We're an emerging Hispanic serving institution, which means that we're about 16% of our undergraduate population identifying as Hispanic. And when we become a Hispanic serving institution, which we will at the end of this decade, means that more than 25% of our undergraduate population identify as Hispanic. And our overall undergraduates, more than, or close to half of them, are first-generation students. So many of those students that I just described to you, or that demographic that I just described to you, those students have a lot of high need. And so we've been raising money privately through our foundation. Mm-hmm. We've convinced the state the last 2 years to invest more in need-based aid. And then we've been allocating more resources internally from the resources that we're already giving or been given by the state towards this effort, so that individuals who need that extra support will get it for 4 years so they can complete their degree. So that's what we're doing at the institution. And that's one of the reasons why we're growing. We're one of the only state schools right now that's consistently growing.
Right. Congratulations. Yeah. So I have some additional thoughts among the 2022 priorities for Wichita State. You said you like to provide an accessible, affordable, and impactful higher education. It also says that diversity, or you want to diversify and develop the faculty and staff to better reflect the student body and region, and increase need-based aid.
Yeah.
Elaborate on those. How is that happening today?
Yeah, so, and this is one of the things that I was just mentioning, the gap between a student who could or could not come to school is, in some cases, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $15,000. And so many of the students that I just described, they come with the federal Pell Grant that low-income students are eligible for, but they still have this gap. And so we're trying to raise dollars privately through state investment, through our own allocation of resources. So that's what we're trying to do. So when they come here, they know that their tuition and fees are covered for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So that's the main reason, the main way we're addressing that. And when we say need-based aid, that's what we're doing with it. So the other thing that's happening, as I mentioned, at the university and all over the country, and especially in this county, Sedgwick County, is that we're becoming more and more diverse. Well, I know from my healthcare days that patients are going to do better if they're taken care of by people that look like them. Mm-hmm. It's the same in college. Right. Students are going to be more engaged, more able to learn material, graduate, be successful, go on to get a career, if they feel welcome, if they feel like they're being educated by people who look like them. Yeah. And so we're intentionally putting together efforts to make sure that our faculty and our staff look like our student body.
So what will be the priority for 2023, the few top ones?
Well, we are driven by affordability, access, making sure the talent pipeline meets employer needs, and increasing economic prosperity for our community. One of the things that we're working on right now with the University of Kansas is developing a health science center in the core of our city. Mm-hmm. So we've received investment from the state last year and this year, and we hope to start construction on that facility. Again, the whole purpose of that is to come together, to work together in a true interprofessional way in the core of our city with KU and their School of Medicine, our health profession programs, and the ultimate goal here is to improve patient outcomes. So that's one of the things that you'll see. That will increase the prosperity of this community, be very transformational. Right. Probably the biggest capital investment like this in the city of Wichita's history.
So, Dr. Muma, what are your views on the government's thought of forgiving up to $20,000 for every student with loans?
Well, I there's a lot of views on both sides of that issue. When you and I went to school, we paid. The most I ever paid was $12 a credit hour down in Texas. I don't know what you paid, but probably even less. I don't know.
I went to Brigham Young, and it was very inexpensive.
Yeah. It's not that way anymore. And so, one of the arguments that a lot of people have of not doing that is that that's not fair to people who didn't have that opportunity before. But they weren't paying the prices that we're paying for now. So I think there's some value to this, that that we need to think about. That instead of having students have a tremendous amount of debt when they leave and spending years paying it off, let's see how we can help them. And so I think there's a lot of value in that.
One question that people always ask WSU, and I'm going to ask that to you too, as the new president, is there any hope for a football team for WSU ever?
Well, okay, so ever. So I'll just say this. If a president ever wants to bring back football, it's going to be very expensive, between $200 and $300 million to bring back football. And it's just not football. When we bring back a sport like that, we have to also bring additional sports for women. So we would have to have that investment. We are in the process of refurbishing Cessna Stadium into a more of a multi-purpose venue for track and field and soccer and concerts and those sorts of things. People ask me all the time, so this is just really putting the nail in the coffin on football. And I said, football wouldn't be played in, if a president ever brought football back, it would never be played in that stadium. So we'd have to find another place for it. It's not something that we're focusing on right now at the university.
So I have a series of quick questions. The best time of your life?
Well, I'm having a good time now. People ask me this all the time, are you enjoying being the president of the university? And I am, but here's what I'll say about it. You know, I get to meet a lot of wonderful people like yourself, and the Secretary of Commerce was recently here, and I get to meet them, but I don't get to spend time and really get to know them. And I don't get to view it like some other people get to view it and absorb it and fully absorb it. So that's a little bit of a challenge. But you know, I'm very thankful to be in the role. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
And finally, a professional goal yet to be achieved.
Well, I'll just say this. I'm very happy where I am at the university. I love the university, love the people here. I'm not looking for the next presidency or elected office or anything like that. I feel like if we can achieve real access for our students, making sure that we get them to where they need to be when they are time to graduate, and helping grow our community, and that's solidified, probably never will be entirely, then that would be my next aspiration.
On that note, Dr. Rick Muma, thank you for joining me one-on-one.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching this edition of One-on-One. Our email address is oneonone@kpts.org. That's if you have a question or comment, which we welcome. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom. Be well, and I'll see you soon.